Salve galera, beleza? E aí, como é que vocês estão? E sejam muito bem-vindos a mais um vídeo aqui no canal. E eu sou o GUIL e hoje vamos de um vídeo diferente, galera. Vamos mostrar aí pra vocês um pouquinho do universo PlayStation. Mas é um vídeo curto, vai dar aí uns 10 minutos no máximo. Eu vou pedir, sem mais delongas, se inscreva no canal, deixa aquele like para ajudar e fortalecer, comenta, compartilha e bora lá, galera. Bora assistir um trailer aí, né, com um meio documentário, mostrando aí, não é documentário não, é só um trailer aí, né, mostrando um pouquinho aí do universo PlayStation, beleza? Bom, eu vou assistir junto com vocês, então chega mais. Bora lá, galera.
Hey up, it's Snax, and today we're going to the Sony PlayStation HQ to get hands-on with the Ps5 Pro. So Sony flew me up to their San Mateo headquarters where I was able to play PlayStation games on the Ps5 Pro versus the standard PS5 modes literally side by side and talk to some of the amazing folks from the game studios. I also take a quick peek at the limited edition 30th anniversary versions of the PS5 Pro as well. So thank you PlayStation for letting me get this hands-on experience early, and for the rest of you, let's check it out together.
I was running and I was so worried that I would miss my flight.
Oh look guys, it's Spider-Man's butt. No, for real, it's Spider-Man's butt. So this all took place during a pretty low-key event where only a handful of media outlets were invited. Walking in the event room were two big monitors set up at each game station, and we were able to check out games like The Last of Us Part 2, Spider-Man 2, Ratchet & Clank, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Some of the questions I had going in: what differences would I notice on the PS5 Pro versus the standard mode? Do games look better on the PS5 Pro? Does it feel better? And of course, the loaded question of, is it worth it? Well, this is what we're going to find out. So if you're like me and like 70% of all PS5 players who prefer performance mode versus fidelity mode, playing in 30 frames per second just doesn't do it for me because the gameplay just doesn't feel as responsive. But there are times when I do play fidelity mode. For example, The Last of Us Part 2 is just so beautiful that I switch it to fidelity mode during the slower scenes. But obviously, fidelity mode does have a trade-off, as you guys already know, and that's the choppy 30 FPS you get. So I'm happy to report that hands-on, the PS5 Pro enhanced versions of the games I played, like The Last of Us Part 2, all look just as good playing at 60 frames per second compared to their 30 FPS fidelity mode counterparts on the PS5.
Let's play the talks! Up and over the hill!
Final Fantasy Rebirth is also another game that gamers put on fidelity mode because it just looks so much better. Now, one thing they did mention was that it was a targeted 60 frames per second. When I played, there didn't seem to be any noticeable hiccups or drops in frames, even during fighting scenes in games such as Dragon's Dogma, for example. It was really impressive seeing some of the improvements in person rather than on the video. The draw distances and graphics in far shots looked obviously improved. The level of detail in the foreground, they look so much better. Sharper, punchier, smoother, and less jagged when you look closely. For me, the most impressive and most optimized to my eyes was Horizon Forbidden West. The skin looked better, the shadow details looked better, the lighting coming through the clouds looked more real with less artifacts, each detail of things like individual leaves were sharper, and even things like stars or hologram graphics were all improved on. For example, in the standard edition of the PS5, you can see stars sort of disappear as you move around. But in the new PS5 Pro version, they seem so much more vibrant and full, and they don't disappear at all. It was interesting hearing Roderick from Gorilla talk about the new power of the PS5 Pro enabled them to go back and improve upon an already great-looking game. The same went for Ratchet and Clank, where you can literally see confetti disappear in the standard version, but on the PS5 Pro, the confetti still hangs around and the edges look sharper and cleaner. I also saw improvements in ray tracing reflections in higher frame rate situations in Spider-Man 2, and in Gran Turismo. PS5 Pro enhanced versions of the game, there's no longer any compromise or choice between fidelity and performance. But now we get to the trickier parts of the discussion. Can I easily notice a difference between 30 frames per second and 60 frames per second? Easily. Can I easily notice a difference in finer details between the PS5 Pro versions and the standard versions? Yes, I can, especially on games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, where the versatility mode looks so much better than the old performance mode, and you still get the same frames.
Even after everything...
The more nuanced and loaded question is, will people think it's worth it? Well, that depends on the person. I think we might be getting closer to a point of diminishing returns as it relates to things that gamers will really notice a huge difference. For example, for me, the jump from 30 to 60 frames per second is like, wow, I'm never going back to 30. Whereas the jump from 60 to 120 is like, wow, this is really nice. But at the same time, 60 is still pretty good for me. I do think there are people who always need to be able to have the latest and greatest, the types that really appreciate being able to console game without compromise. So obviously, the Pro is appealing for people like those. You see it all the time, even PC folks who will spend a couple extra bucks just to get a few more frames per second and know they have the best piece of tech out there. To them, there's an extra satisfaction that they get, and it makes them happy. And you know what? More power to them, and if it makes them happy, who are we to care how others spend their money? But I think for a lot of people though, if it comes to a choice between gaming at performance mode or no compromises at $700, I feel like most of you are content with your current PS5 and current setup. Now, if you don't have a PS5 already and have a really nice setup with a huge screen and all the bells and whistles, well, that's a different situation. And also, another different situation is getting a chance to splurge on one of these things. Good luck.
Salve galera, beleza? Então galera, esse foi o vídeo aí, foi um vídeo curto, né, mostrando aí um pouquinho do universo PlayStation. Queria falar pra vocês galera, que aquela parte ali do Gran Turismo que deu uma segurada na tela, não é o vídeo travando. Eles estavam mostrando ali as texturas do carro, da parte da chuva e tudo, né, um carro do lado do outro pra você poder comparar e ver o reflexo batendo na lataria do carro, porque ali eles estavam testando os games rodando no PlayStation 5 Pro. Mas deu pra ver um pouquinho ali dos estúdios, né? A gente viu ali Uncharted, God of War, Ratchet and Clank, Days Gone, The Last of Us, Horizon Forbidden West, Spider-Man 2, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, que tem uma parceria aí com a PlayStation, Death Strange. entre outros jogos, né? Mostrou ali o Gran Turismo, né? O Gran Turismo 7, o Fórmula 1. Mostrou um pouquinho ali dos mais antigos, né? Não mostrou nada sobre o Astrobot, por exemplo, que é mais recente. Tem o Silent Hill 2 em parceria também, que vai sair agora no dia 8/10. Mas esse foi o vídeo, galera. Você viu ali a mina viajando ali no touch, né? Do DualSense e do DualSense Edge. Essa parte aqui, ó. Né? Mas no caso ali da versão, né, do PlayStation 5 Pro, 30 anos de aniversário da PlayStation. Que é um coração, galera. E mais 2 rins que vai embora ali. Beleza? Mas eu sou o Guil, galera. Esse foi um vídeo curto. Até para não me prolongar muito, né? Se vocês gostarem desse formato de vídeo, comenta aqui embaixo pra mim. Que a gente traz mais, beleza? Tudo de bom sempre, galera. Aquele abraço. Valeu quem acompanhou até aqui. Se inscrevam, compartilha, comenta e valeu! Tchau, galera! Falou! Ah, desculpa, galera. Foi mal. Eu vou colocar o link desse canal aí onde eu peguei essa apresentação, beleza? Só pra não esquecer. Vou colocar o link aí pra fazer jus, né? Que isso daí não é direto do meu canal. Valeu! Agora eu vou de verdade. Fui!